really is a whole body longevity hack. Infrared bypasses the air and works directly with your body. It gets into your cells, your water molecules. Instantly, they start to move and change. It is really like your body is getting this gentle, radiant hug.
Connie Zack, co-founder of Sunlighten, pioneer in full-spectrum infrared sauna technology. Today on the Commune podcast, the hidden power of invisible light to foster cellular health, longevity, and resilience.
We need to train our bodies today for our future selves. For congestive heart failure, they will start with infrared versus anything else because they know it can impact the body.
If you care about brain health, then the ritual of sauna is a really important one.
It literally is bringing the sunlight back into your life inside.
Okay, Connie Zack, what a treat. Thanks for being on the Commune podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am a long-term enjoyer of the sauna, but for people that are just getting into infrared therapy in general and infrared sauna, I think it would be good to start with some foundational knowledge around infrared light just in general. I mean, what is infrared light and where does it sit on the electromagnetic spectrum?
Yeah, infrared light is the majority of light that comes directly from the sun. So it is a spectrum of light that comes from the sun and provides 4 different wavelengths. 2 of them are felt by heat. So the far infrared and mid infrared are felt by heat. And then near infrared and red light are converted. Those 2 wavelengths are way too hot to receive by heat. So you have to convert them to LEDs. And when those are converted, then near infrared is invisible and red light is visible, and they're received and penetrate the skin by the light energy. But the entire spectrum is light. Really a way to think about infrared, 2 things that kind of help people understand the difference between infrared and just traditional regular heat that they feel. And like in California where you are, is when you feel regular heat, you're getting hot because the air is hot. Infrared bypasses the air and works directly with your body and your cells. And so it is absorbed into the body. And it is that feeling that you can relate to when you go outside and it's a cloudy day and all of a sudden the sun peeks out from underneath the clouds, and instantly you feel that wonderful warm blanket, and it is really like your body is getting this just gentle radiant hug, but really from the inside out. You're just like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. Stay there, sun. Stay there. Don't go underneath the clouds. Stay. And that is infrared. That is the feeling of infrared, and that is what we've committed our entire lives to, is bringing that feeling inside into the comfort of your own home, and then mastering the delivery of it and changing all the wavelengths. And we can talk about all the other things we've done, but that's on a foundational level. That's what I've spent my life committed to.
Yeah. I often think of it by analogy with the ocean, which actually has waves, right? And so, on a tempestuous day, you might look out at the ocean from your balcony and there would be kind of high frequency, very choppy, short waves. And then someday on a very calm day, you might look out and there would be kind of very low frequency, long wavelengths. And by analogy, that those short, choppy waves would be one side of the electromagnetic wave spectrum, which would be UV or UVB, UVA. And then what we're talking about is that other side, that sort of slopey, nice, long wavelength, kind of on the other side of visible light. And I think that sometimes when people envision that, because I think that's an image that a lot of people can relate to, it actually helps to understand how infrared light can actually penetrate the skin and actually interact with our cells, or even at the intracellular level. So can you maybe explain a little bit like what's happening mechanically when the body is interacting with infrared light? And maybe you could actually break that up a little bit between red light, near infrared, and then far infrared.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I love your analogy 100% with the water, because it's the perfect, if you think about when you're in the ocean and it's smooth and, it's easy to maneuver when you're in there. When it's smooth, it's very difficult when it's really choppy. And that ease of maneuvering is what the benefit is of the infrared light spectrum in the body. And so we'll first start with the far infrared part of the spectrum. And I start with far because far is the foundation of the infrared light spectrum. It is really the most important part of the infrared light spectrum. And it's the most important because it is the longest and smoothest wavelength. So it's the perfect analogy of that ocean, very smooth, almost glass-like, feeling. And you want it to be smooth and glass-like because that's the type of wavelength that is going to be most easily absorbed into the body. So what happens when far infrared energy is transferred from a heating source is that energy is absorbed, again, bypasses the air, so it doesn't have to be hot, which we can talk extensively about today. It is absorbed into the body, into the water molecules, into your cells. That absorption starts to change every part of your body. So what happens is it gets into your cells, your water molecules, instantly they start to move and change. And Dr. Bland always says, I love his words. He says, what happens, Connie, is they start to dance and vibrate and everything moves, but it doesn't move in an irrational or violent manner, and the bonds don't break, which helps with all the benefits. It moves in a very dance-like, vibrational frequency. That movement is what starts the biochemical cascade of benefits in every single system. Every single system is impacted. So to be very specific, that flow starts to increase your circulation, starts to increase your core temperature, starts to increase the oxygenation into all of your tissues as well as into your brain. That increase in core temperature starts to activate your heat shock proteins. It starts to increase caloric burn. It starts to really increase your heart rate. And all of that increase in flow, in circulation, and oxygen is where you get the tremendous benefits of detoxification, pain relief, reduce inflammation, helping with your circadian rhythm, because it mimics exercise. I mean, it just sets off everything. That literally from your brain all the way to your feet, every part of your body is impacted. And here's the great part. That's just far infrared. So that's just one part. That's just one of 4 benefits that you get from the spectrum. The next, and I won't spend as much time on the other 3, the next is mid-infrared. And this wavelength is a little bit hotter. So if you're going back to our water, we're going to stick with this water thing. I'm loving it. If you go back to the water, it's going to be a little bit, not choppy, it's not really the right word, but a little bit more movement into the waves in the water because the wavelength is a little bit shorter and it's hotter. And so when it's shorter and hotter, it doesn't penetrate into the body as deeply. So this wavelength is excellent for muscle recovery, your joints and your tissues, and reducing inflammation and helping the synergistic effect with far infrared on caloric burn. So it's really great for weight loss. So then right next to mid-infrared, and those two, let's do a reminder, those two, far and mid, this light energy, and that's converted into heat. So you're feeling it by heat. So you're going to sweat from those two, okay? So now we're going to go over to the 2 vanity wavelengths, I always call them. They're the invisible ones that are received into the body by light. And start with near infrared. And here's something I'd love to clear up right away, because this is something that's very confusing, and I get this question all the time, is people understand red. Well, they don't understand red light, but they have heard of red light, or they acknowledge that there may be some benefits with red light. What they don't understand, what they don't know about, is near infrared is the invisible part of the light spectrum, and it penetrates the body, the skin, at a deeper level. It has the deepest penetration into the skin, therefore is the most powerful of all parts of the visible light spectrum. And that's why 16 years ago, back in 2010, we introduced this whole concept of light energy by near infrared into the marketplace, because the scientists we work with let us know this is the most powerful part of the whole photobiomodulation. Now, right next door to near infrared, and when you look at the rainbow, you see the invisible part, which is near infrared, and then right next to that, when you see a rainbow, you see red light. And that has a similar impact onto the skin. It penetrates the skin. It helps to repair our cells. It helps to accelerate your cell turnover. It helps with fine lines and wrinkles, boosting collagen, elastin. It just doesn't penetrate as deep as near infrared, but it's visible. And so people relate to it and they see it and they just are like, oh, okay, I get it. It's working. Near infrared is hard for people to comprehend that even though it is more powerful and it works better, they can't see it. So there's that counterintuitive aspect. But those are the 4 parts of the infrared light spectrum. And so it's much more complex. People always ask me, how is it different than just a regular hot sauna that I can go in at 180 degrees? The answer is it's just so much more. There's so many more dimensions to it. And you're getting the light energy in 4 different levels, at 4 different ways with your cells. So it really is a whole body longevity hack with your cells at various levels. It's kind of like what I always think about when you think about non-steroidals or anti-inflammatory medicine like aspirin or Aleve or those types of products that work broad spectrum all over your body. That's the way infrared is if you do all the different parts of the spectrum, but without the medication and without the harm on some of your liver and your kidneys and other parts of your body.
Yeah.
In your gut,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You explained that so beautifully. Another analogy for you as it pertains to near infrared radiation is, if you've ever pulled up in traffic to a tinted SUV and you've heard some big bass coming out of it. Well, those bass waves are similar. They're sort of low frequency, long wavelengths. And so they're able to actually penetrate sort of the steel of the car and actually get out, and you can hear it. And you're not going to hear those frequencies that are choppy, that are high frequency short waves. You're not going to hear the treble part of the music. And it's another analogy for people to use about how actually infrared waves actually penetrate the body. And this is really just quite amazing. I mean, I've heard that, near infrared can penetrate up to 6 to 8 centimeters and actually interact with the mitochondria intracellularly, such that even there's this one enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase, which is CCO, which is very much involved in the production of ATP, but also involved in the production of intracellular melatonin as an antioxidant, which is the mechanism by which near infrared therapy can actually mitigate oxidative stress. So it's just quite amazing. I think the point that you make around the difference between the infrared sauna experience and the dry sauna experience is really important, because I love a dry sauna. I love the experience of that, and many people love that experience. But there is a whole other additional set of benefits associated with near infrared waves and the infrared sauna. So maybe pull on that thread a little bit in terms of the difference, both experientially and benefit-wise, between the more typical Finnish dry saunas and the infrared saunas.
Yeah, one of the greatest differences at a very practical, simplistic level is the fact that the experience itself, like when you go in there, it is very gentle. Again, going back to the water, I'm again leaning into your water analogy, and I love your bass analogy. I love music and sound as well, so that was great. But when you think about if you're in the ocean and it's smooth and you're enjoying your experience, you could stand there and be there for a while and really and just enjoy the scenery. Like you're taking it all in. You're like, oh, this is beautiful. And every now and then a wave comes that's a little bit, stronger, but it passes and you're just really enjoying that experience. It's that kind of experience with infrared where you go in there and it's not short and choppy and tough to endure. That's not what infrared is. It is not something you have to fight your way through. It is something that you can go in and you can habit stack. You can do all sorts of other things. It's one of the very few modalities out of any wellness. If you think about all the different things that are out there that you can do to make yourself healthier, there's lots of choices, lots of options that are great. And I do a lot of them. What I love about being inside my Sunlighten sauna is it's one of the few places where I can go down there first thing in the morning and I can do all the things that I do upstairs in my bedroom, but downstairs in my sauna and get everything accomplished, such as I can turn on my meditation app. I can set my intentions. I can do my deep breathing. I can do my visualizations. I can do my intentions. I can stretch and I can really get myself into that parasympathetic state. And there is clinical data showing that infrared helps increase the production of the autonomic nervous system and activity, meaning that it helps to decrease the strain of our bodies and getting the body, shifting it and resetting it from the sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state. So that's, I'm answering a lot of what does it do and how is it different than traditional in one fell swoop. But I really love talking about just that experience because a lot of people know when they go into a Finnish sauna that's really, really hot, they're not usually in there that long. It's hard for somebody to stay in there for 30 minutes. That's a long time for having that heat. And in a Sunlighten sauna, it is very easy to be in there 30 minutes. You can even be in there 40 minutes and you don't feel strained. You don't feel drained. When you're finished, you actually feel more energy than you did when you went in, which is a result of what you talked about earlier, as far as the activation of the mitochondria, the increase in ATP, the conversion into more energy into your cells and your mitochondria at every single aspect of your body. So you're getting that mitochondrial benefit, in deep, you're getting it in the tissues, you're getting in the skin. And when you're finished, wow, you just have so much more energy. The other thing I want to speak to really clearly is that energy production also has a significant impact on how the brain operates. And red light, near infrared, and at mid and far, all four of them help the cognitive function, help to increase the circulation and the blood flow, as well as penetrating into the brain. And there's a neuroprotective aspect. So we are able to think more clearly and have more mental clarity and reduce mental fog as a result of using infrared sauna.
So many benefits there. I mean, I think you intimated a few. For example, you talked about heat shock proteins. So heat shock proteins are these kind of protein that generally are associated with maintaining the functionality and three-dimensional shape of other proteins, right? So this could be very, very key for cognitive health because a lot of like beta amyloid plaques and tau tangles that are often associated with dementia and neurodegenerative diseases are really involve the collapsing of the three-dimensional shape of proteins, and then they begin to dysfunction. So heat shock proteins, very, very key for brain health, and also this other protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, that gets thrown around a lot, but also induced through the experience of infrared sauna. So if you care about brain health, and there's every reason to care about that, then the ritual of sauna is a really important one. And I use that word purposefully because you talk about it as a ritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really important because modern life can be so fragmented, kind of in this attention economy, but the experience of going into a Sunlighten sauna in the morning or in the early evening, depending kind of how it fits your schedule, is a very ritualistic kind of experience. And like you say, you can habit stack inside of that ritual, with a breath work practice or a meditation practice. I mean, I just love sitting in my sauna, focusing singularly on my breath, just witnessing phenomena coming and going in my field of consciousness and not attaching to anything, not identifying with anything. And it is the absolutely perfect way to begin my day with clarity and a little bit of peace. So I think that's really, really, really just key.
It helps too to get the body back in rhythm, as far as your like circadian rhythm. And I think that is really important in today's day and age. The two aspects I just feel very strongly about right now, where I feel like we as a society are just a little bit off, is in the circadian rhythm and the aspect of not really paying attention and not investing in a really great night's sleep and doing everything it takes to ensure that we get a great night's sleep. And doing an infrared sauna in the morning is a great way to get it literally is bringing the sunlight back into your life inside, because that's the wavelengths coming from the sun, which is how this whole circadian rhythm started, a long, long time ago. And we have the tools and the resources to be able to do that in the comfort of our own home, right? When you wake up and you can go down. I just always say go down because that's where mine is. But I mean, you can go up, you can go sideways, you can go whatever it is, and use your sauna. And the other aspect that is important is what I just talked about, as far as everybody is just on overdrive. And I was just reading an article. I feel like every day I end up coming across information about how much we are living in that survival mode, in the sympathetic state, and just straining our bodies so much. And I know, I was reading it was an article about somebody asked ChatGPT, what are the ways to, have the longest life and to increase your longevity? And the answer wasn't like nutrition. It wasn't the stuff that you would think it was. It was, we have to find ways to decrease stress, because when we're all living in that stressful sympathetic state, it starts to just take off years. You can start to just go through every single aspect that you're doing, and you're taking off, okay, that just decreased 8 years off your life. That just decreased 10 years off your life. And I don't want to do that. Like, I want to add, I want to turn back my biological clock and add years to my chronological clock. And one of the great ways we know for sure scientifically, it's not just me, Connie Zack talking about it. We know scientifically that, infrared can provide a positive impact on the autonomic nervous system. And that to me is so powerful. And that was measured, that clinical study was measured by looking at our heart rate variability, as well as the ratio in the different HRV biomarkers. So it's an important piece of data that people should know about. And it's such a simple, easy way to increase your HRV.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have whoops and Oura rings back when my grandmother was alive, but she lived to 104. And yeah, she was not a biohacker per se, but she did master the art of nervous system regulation. She went through a tremendous amount of stressful episodes in her life. She grew up through the Depression and, World War II. She lost 3 husbands. but she always managed to bounce back to the middle and find ways to emotionally regulate. And she lived an absolutely full and thriving life until 104. So I think the point that you make there is a very important one, and one that we don't take into account as much. Yeah, we can, do all of these other kind of biohacking things, but the idea of managing stress is such a huge one, particularly in today's environment. I'm curious also about detox because, there's, I think various, obviously the body has a lot of detox systems, the liver, the kidneys, bile, etc. How does sauna, and particularly infrared sauna, impact the body's detoxification system?
Yeah, so this is another benefit of infrared that's a little bit different than traditional heat with the way it works with the body. Again, because the way it's working internally with our systems and our cells. What I really like, the visual I like to help people with is when the energy gets into your cells and your water molecules, and your mitochondria, it's that flow and that activation that happens that helps to get everything moving. We talk a lot about, there's a lot of data about, getting moving outside externally, right? Like walking, increasing movement externally. It's also important that we do things to get our bodies moving internally as well. And detoxification is one of the benefits of helping to make sure you're getting increased flow so that your liver and your kidneys and all of your different systems are working, harmoniously together. And then the next, which is obviously the skin, which is the largest organ, is the infrared energy, that increase in core temperature that starts to happen. That increase starts to set off, the ability to have your body sweat. And we know from the blood, urine, sweat study that the power of sweat with detoxification is significant. In that study, we measured blood, urine, and sweat, and measured the different types of toxicants, and mercury being one of them. And people had no mercury in their blood or urine, but they did have it in their sweat. And nobody wants to be, bogged down and have, high levels of mercury in their body. And so infrared is a great way to be a tool and a resource to keep your body clean and aid all of your different systems and make them as healthy as possible. We can't control. I mean, we're in a day and age so different than, our ancestors, that you walk outside and you're just bombarded with toxins. I mean, you walk into a store, you walk, anywhere you go, right? I can smell. I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I smelling? Because whenever you have a scent, like there's elements of probably, harmful substances that are contained in the things that are coming through, or the things that are exposed to your skin. So we can't control that, but we can control how we help our bodies detoxify and get clean and purge, and then obviously ultimately what we put back into our bodies.
Yeah, and I know that the detoxification aspects of infrared sauna were essentially at the core of you starting Sunlighten, because this is a very personal matter for you. Your brother, I believe, was very, very ill with mercury poisoning, and really found a good part of his cure in red light therapy, or in infrared therapy. So I know that that's what inspired you. Oftentimes it is these very personal parts of our lives that bend the arc of what we do. Yeah. So I'm also curious about just cardiovascular health, because the overwhelming majority of data that has been gathered on saunas tends to come from Finnish dry saunas, just because they've been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of studies, particularly out of Finland, and I know Rhonda Patrick here in the United States has done some great work putting a lot of those studies into meta-analyses, et cetera. I'm wondering, what is the emerging clinical data coming out now around infrared? Is there more and more study happening? And what are you seeing? Anything new on the frontier?
Yeah, there are. There's more information coming out all the time. A lot of the information that's coming is retrospective, right? So that's what I think is fantastic and so interesting, because people always say to me, they're like, "Oh wow, Connie, this is like so new and cutting edge." I'm like, just like, that's funny, because it's been around for so long. I mean, when I started Sunlighten in our basement, there were already cutting edge studies with infrared on cardiovascular health. And that's one of the things, in addition to watching my brother transform his body from being, on his deathbed to being healthy, it was also the data that I was able to access that was just mind blowing and game changing, because it is really hard to have a significant impact on your heart health, on your arteries, on your triglycerides, and on everything that's connected to the heart. It's just really, really difficult. And infrared is an excellent tool to help change the elasticity. And there's a lot more new data about elasticity in your arteries, and the increase in heart rate and the increase in blood flow, and the impact of that onto your heart rate. Another piece of information that just recently came out, again, retrospective, looking back at all these people who have used it over the years. There was a study done on really elderly patients that were really sick, and they had such difficulty in moving. And they took people and exposed them to infrared. Mind you, it was only 15 minutes. And they exposed them to infrared, and then they measured the ability to walk 6 minutes. And the difference between the people, and this is relatively new, the difference between people, the elderly, before and after, is they were able to walk significantly farther after using infrared in the same amount of time than before infrared. And what I love about that piece of data is, you just think about yourself for a second. You just think about if you did something, that allowed you, and you measured before and after 6 minutes, and you were able to walk farther, the level of confidence and swagger, and just, like, wow, I just did that. That's so cool. I mean, I know when I work out, I'll challenge myself. If I'm doing 2 or 3 sets in strength training, if I'm doing like high intensity, I'll always challenge myself to do this next set in a faster way, and when I do it, I feel great. I feel like, oh, that was great, Connie. That's such a great achievement. And I just think about those people that they saw that they could walk farther in 6 minutes after using infrared. When you are into your later state in life, doing something that's so easy to receive, but having that impact is such a confidence, and it's a mood changer, right? They're just thinking, wow, look at me. I can move. I couldn't even move before, and now I can move. If I keep doing this, I can, the changes it can make on my life. And that stuff just gets me really, as you can tell, really excited, because it gets me excited because a lot of these studies are with congestive heart failure, with the elderly, with people who were hospitalized. I mean, there were really people in a very severe state, and showed the positive impact. And I think about, imagine if we today, you and me, we started doing this, we're not in that state. And what a great impact it's going to provide on us, and the significant level of positive impact that it can have on us. It just, it gets me really excited to share with the world. So there's so many benefits of infrared with heart conditions. People, if you're interested, one of the greatest ways to receive just this long, extensive list is you can Google a therapy called Waon, or it's actually, the way you pronounce it is Waon, which stands for soothing warmth. And it is using infrared for 15 minutes and then following it up by 30 minutes laying with a blanket. And the amount of benefits by using WAON or infrared therapy, it goes to reduced hospitalization, reduced death. So many significant benefits, including its first line now treatment in Japan for congestive heart failure. They will start with infrared versus anything else because it's non-invasive and because they know it can quickly, that's the other thing, is very quickly it can impact the body.
Yeah, amazing. In some ways, I think what infrared sauna often solves for is what I call evolutionary mismatches. So we evolved for millennia, hundreds of thousands of years as Homo sapiens anyways, living outdoors, very much taking in infrared light. So 50% of the light or the energy here on Earth, even now, is in the infrared spectrum, right? But now we spend 94% of our time indoors. And now, of course, we've stripped that adversity away from our lives because we have a nifty digital thermostat on the wall. And so, in a way, through kind of denuding ourselves of some of these good stressors, if you will, we've become, honestly, more susceptible to disease and to decrepitude. So in some ways, what we're solving for are these evolutionary mismatches by then establishing our exposure to near infrared light. And I think the one, amazing thing about sunlight, you don't need like a ton of space in order to avail yourselves of a Sunlighten sauna. So maybe talk a little more specifically about how you design your product. How do you determine which wavelengths you admit? And, are you thinking about safety and materials and EMF exposure and all those things? Give us a little bit of a window into your product design process.
Our goal at a high level is all about access and availability. This is not something we're trying to make this so elusive and aspirational. I want everybody to be able to have access and be able to either own one or be able to go somewhere and use one, because the benefits, as we've just talked about, are so astounding that to keep it at a way that is prohibitive from people, it just is not, it's not our style. So we worked really hard to keep the cost of goods down as much as possible. It's a challenge. It has been a challenge over the last 20 years, but we're doing everything we can to do that. And we start off with the far infrared foundational product. We have our Solo, which has the most amount of far infrared on the market. And why that matters is because more is better. The more amount that you can get into your body, the more benefits that you're going to receive. And we have a patent on the absorption. So for peace of mind that you can't get more far infrared anywhere else. That's in the Solo system. And then we have that same system and the same patent into our Signature, which is essentially taking the same product, but putting it into a wooden cabin. The Solo is a lie-down model. I didn't make that clear. It's a one-person lie-down model, telescopic in nature, two-dome, double-dome design. Is so much better than any of those blankets that have the plastics and that you heat it up and the off-gassing and all of that. This is safe, non-toxic. The materials are fantastic. You have the patented far infrared, again, so you get the most amount of far infrared into your body. That's what helps with all of the heart health studies, depression studies, detox studies, weight loss, and inflammation, and as well as circadian rhythm and sleep. And then the next collection was the Amplify. And what we did with that, as far as our product development thought process, is there is a segment of the population that wants the benefits of far infrared, but they also want a level of intense heat. And they don't want to sacrifice that experience of heat for just having it at a lower temperature, which is how infrared operates, because it's not about temperature, it's about wavelength and energy and light energy into the body. So what we did with Amplify was we created these multi-spectrum, full spectrum heaters that are in front of you. Those are amplified and are more intense. So you're sitting there, you have far infrared heaters behind you. Again, those the patented ones, you get the most amount into your body, and then you get this burst of heat where you're receiving far, mid, and near infrared in front of you. And that's called the Amplify series collection. And then, like the belle of the ball, the unicorn of all products out there, the only product that has PBM, photobiomodulation, inside the sauna is called Impulse. And photobiomodulation is the combination. It's the combination of near infrared and red light, and using the light energy to help connect with your cells and supercharge your cells. And Impulse has 4 separate heaters delivered independently, yet gives the opportunity to combine them with 6 wellness programs: cardio, detox, anti-aging, relaxation, weight loss, and pain relief. You just have to go in there and think, okay, what experience do I want today? Am I did I just work out, so I want pain relief? Am I feeling like I'm not going to be able to get a walk-in or any type of cardiovascular activity, so I might as well do the cardio program? Are you thinking I am stressed out beyond belief? So you press the relaxation program to help get your autonomic nervous system back in check and get balanced. As far as the safety goes, this is important, is we are so committed to safety, especially because of my brother's story, and he was so sick. And so we don't want to do anything, any component, use any material that could potentially off gas or emit any type of harmful substance that you could absorb into the body. So we take it really seriously, and all of our materials are non-toxic and safe. We have the lowest EMF available, and make sure we test every single part to make sure it's completely safe and natural, including like the quality of wood, etc.
Thank you. That was a great description. And I was actually learned something today as I was doing a little bit of research for our conversation, about why we experience an increase in heart rate, when we get hot. And so you have that experience of getting into the infrared sauna, and your core body temperature starts to increase. And the body is just miraculously engineered for homeostasis. So our body, our hypothalamus, which is the thermostat, it just says, okay, we got to get back into that little Goldilocks zone of 98.6, right? So it vasodilates our skin, the cells near our skin, in order to basically let off heat. So the blood is then going towards the skin, but then the heart says, oh, wait a minute, I still have to get enough blood to my brain and to my cells, because the blood carries the oxygen for the creation of the energy that we need to stay alive and to have podcasts. And so what it does, it just starts to beat faster to get the same amount of blood back out to the cells. And so, of course, that is an exercise in homeostasis as well. And so it's really just fascinating about like how our body is always engineered to find balance, and it gets better at finding that balance when we stress it just the right amount. And that's what the experience of the infrared sauna is all about. I mean, I wrote a book called Good Stress, so I went deep into that whole topic, and I think it's just amazing. The other kind of stress or stress protocol that I often combine with sauna is cold water therapy and some contrast bathing. And I wonder kind of where you fall there on that topic of moving between the hot and the cold. Is that something that you do or you recommend?
Yes, I do, with a couple caveats. So yes, I do for sure. In fact, I'm not sure if you know, but was it last year we acquired the assets to a company that does cold plunge called Ice Barrel. And so I had obviously, just because I'm in this space, done research on the benefits of cold therapy and done cold therapy myself. But since we, acquired it, I have really become immersed in the understanding of it. And the thing I think is really important, two things when you're doing contrast therapy is this whole, I loved your way you positioned the stress aspect. If you just stress it the right amount, right? And that's the secret is, and in contrast, you're doing stress on both sides. So you don't need to go overboard on both sides as well. Just enough to get your body changed, just like when you're lifting weights. You don't want to hurt yourself so much and stretch that muscle so that you're like, you're injured, right? You don't want to injure yourself, but you want to push it just enough where you get a little bit of stretch so that your muscle can rebuild itself and you can become back stronger. Same thing with hot and cold. So I just caution people, the continued data that's out there suggests we don't need to go at these freezing temperatures forever. You can get the benefits at not as cold for shorter periods of time. And then especially because I'm so passionate about women's education and empowering women, we're just built differently. And so when you're doing cold therapy, you do not need to be as cold. You don't need to be in the ice state. The new temperature that is being recommended for women is between 55 and 59, which is much warmer than a lot of the data originally. And that's important because it can have the reverse effect on women. It can make women feel worse, and that's not good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. What I always say is find just the edge of your discomfort, like not all the way down. I would never encourage people to jump into a 40-degree ice bath. And like you said, it's just really finding the edges. And 55 to 59 degrees, I think, is fine. I have a cold plunge here. I keep it at 58 degrees. It's still, feels
That's
very,
still
very
cold.
chilly for me.
Yeah.
It's still cold. And the thing is, if you get accustomed to that, you always have the ability to either extend duration or lower temperature. Cold is obviously a vasoconstrictor and hot is a vasodilator. So moving between the two of them can sort of accordion out your lymph and your circulatory system. So you're really getting your lymph and blood moving around your body well. So I find it to be a very invigorating experience.
The thing that I do love when it comes to contrast therapy is the connection between contrast therapy and building resilience. We need to train our bodies today for our future selves. And part of that training process contains the need to be as resilient as possible. We need to be able to figure out how to quickly get back into an emotional balance. And cold therapy is just, there's really not much, it's such a great way to teach yourself how to fight through and bounce back. And it's so great.
Yeah, if you do cold therapy every day, you will never get mad in traffic, for example. like life
I love that.
Yeah, life will throw you curveballs and stressful situations all the time, inevitably. And if you've trained yourself to be able to put, top-down conscious pressure on top of involuntary bottom-up response, then you're going to be a more stoic and resilient person out there in the world. And that can really come in handy, God, in so many different situations. I have 3 daughters. They will try to irritate me from time to time. And I just, I was like, no, I did my cold plunge this morning. I can bounce back. I can emotionally regulate and have a more adaptive adult response to whatever they're doing. So I agree with you. I think building resilience is absolutely key. So for those people who are just starting with infrared sauna, is there any ideal starting protocol in terms of session length and frequency and temperature?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm so glad you brought up the whole temperature aspect, because this is another myth buster that people just don't understand, because they've, their connection to sauna or heat is regulated and determined by the word temperature. And infrared has nothing to do with temperature. It does, but the temperature is on the surface temperature of the heater, and to control the quantity and quality of the energy transfer into the body, not the temperature of the air that's in the sauna. So to answer your question directly, yes, if somebody is getting started, here's some things I would recommend. Is, first of all, really most importantly, is get in the sauna, turn it on and get in. And that's really, like, it's counterintuitive. People they have this false false need that they need to warm it up. And you don't need to warm it up to get the benefits. If that's after you do it for a while, here's my thing. After you become an expert and you do it for a while and you have determined what's best for you and your body, then you can do whatever you want. But when you're getting started, I want you to get the maximum benefit as quickly as possible. And the way you do that is you get in, turn it on, and let the energy being absorbed. That's when, getting back full circle, when you get in and turn it on, that's when those ocean waves are the smoothest. And that's when that transfer of energy is at maximum capacity. And you already have, if you're getting a Sunlighten sauna, you already have the maximum quantity of infrared. Now you need the maximum transfer and you need the maximum absorption, right? So you want to max out that entire process. That happens the minute you turn it on. It's like, think of this visual of, because it's light energy, it's like a light bulb. So when it's dark and you turn on the light's on. You don't have to wait for 5 minutes for the light to change. It's on. And that's the same way of the way infrared works. So get in, turn it on, transfer of energy. Start off 15 minutes, start slow, and then 3 times a week would be perfect. And see how your body reacts, see how you feel. Hydrate heavily and make sure you're taking your electrolytes and replenish any minerals, because the sauna is very, very effective at detoxification and increasing flow and getting, everything moving, and including some of the things that are essential for your body. And so you want to make sure and replenish the essentials.
Okay, that's great advice. Are there any contraindications pertaining to sauna? Is there anyone that really just should not use an infrared sauna?
The only contraindication is pregnant, if you're pregnant, for obvious reasons. And the main thing that I would say for people who are brand new is it's really the hydration factor. And so think of it as doing cardiovascular conditioning. So think of it as I'm going in there and I'm exercising my body from the inside out. So that active exercise, because you are just like you did a beautiful job explaining the whole heart rate change, and all of that is exercise in your body. That takes that is burning calories and increasing your heart rate. That's getting your body moving. And so you need to make sure that you're hydrating appropriately. That's why I say it's always best to start off 15 minutes, because then you can kind of gauge and see, how did I feel? Can I do more next time, etc. So, you could always increase, just kind of like the stress and the cold. You can always go colder. You can always go longer, but start 15 minutes 3 times a week and you will be in great shape.
Thank you so much. I know that we work, very, very closely with Sunlighten. You guys have been such a wonderful partner, and we have a code that I will provide in the show notes for people who are interested in bringing more sauna into their life and bringing one into their home. So thank you so much for being with us and for all the work that you're doing, making people healthier.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I do want to just reinforce the fact but what's really important to unlock your significant discount is you do need to mention Commune. So you need to mention where you heard this, and otherwise it won't give you the significant discount. So make sure you pay attention to that. And if people want more information or if they have other questions, they're more than happy to connect, to me through you or to me directly. I am here to serve. And to help bring light, hope, and happiness to people everywhere. And so I can only do that if people reach out and let me know how I can help them.
And you have a great website with lots of information, and it's very interactive, and there's a lot of good science on there. So for people that, got a good taste today of some of the benefits and mechanisms in science, you can head over to Sunlighten. And is it just sunlighten.com? Is that it?
It is sunlighten.com, like the sunlighten.com.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Connie.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For more of my weekly musings, along with ad-free episodes and live stream conversations, head over to my Substack at jeffkrasno.substack.com. I also want to let you know about our course platform over on Commune, which contains over 3,000 lessons and practices from the world's leading integrative medicine doctors, health experts, and yoga, fitness, and mindfulness teachers. It's a living library for holistic well-being, and you can try it for free for 14 days at onecommune.com/try commune. As a reminder, the audio version of my new book, Good Stress, is available on Audible, and you can listen to it for free as part of your premium Spotify membership. And if you prefer the old school analog option, well, you can pick up a dusty old scroll at goodstress.com and get over $900 worth of bonus courses from some of my biggest influences, including Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Zack Bush, and Dr. Gabor Mate. As always, feel free to reach out to me with comments, questions, or criticism of the constructive variety at jeffk@onecommune.com. Okay, that's all from the Commune for today. My name is Jeff Krasno, and I am here for you.